When the Millionaire's Waltz turned dark, Black Maid'S bone-chilling secret revealed. The music swirled through the air like a phantom, echoing off the marble walls of the grand mansion. It was a night of glitzy chandeliers and laughter, the so-called elite gala, where kindness transformed into a seductive dance until she, the Black Maid, glided by with a darkness lurking in her eyes. A whisper in the air suggested something untold, a secret buried deep in her soul that could unravel the very foundations of the wealthy couple who hosted the event. The smile on her lips wasn't genuine, it was a mask hiding a bone-chilling truth that sent shivers through everyone who dared to look closely. Strange things surrounded that night. The way the mansion creaked like a living entity, the shadows that seemed to slither back and forth along the walls, entwining with the laughter, felt wrong. Guests exchanged uneasy glances as they caught sight of her, so small and fragile, yet surrounded by an aura of raw power. Sirens of doubt stirred within, though no one could place their finger on the dread thickening in their throats. Who was she, really? Then came the sudden scream, a blood-curdling sound that sliced through the gaiety like a jagged knife. It came from the direction she'd just been, where but moments before, she'd shared a knowing glance with the host, Mr. Harrison. People recoiled, their faces draining of color as they rushed to the source of the horror. Was it a joke? A prank gone too far? Or was it something more sinister? The atmosphere was charged, electric, as whispers began to ripple through the crowd, merging with their frantic breaths. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The crowd moved like a tidal wave, rushing toward the room where the scream came from. Heartbeats echoed loudly in the silence that followed the outburst, as panic-stricken faces turned towards each other. A half-glimpse of her silhouette was seen amidst the chaos, her small figure standing still, eerily calm while chaos swirled around her like a storm. What had she seen? Why did the air feel so heavy with dread? The room fell silent, all eyes on her. Everyone held their breath. Was this powerful maid truly harboring a secret that could shatter lives? Or was she simply an innocent bystander caught in a web of luxury and deceit? As tension shot through the crowd, the whispers grew louder, and the biggest mystery of the night lingered in their minds. What dark truth lurked behind her eyes? The question hung like a pendulum, preparing to swing back into a revelation that could change everything. A secret ready to reveal itself, but to whom? The room remained still, people's breaths caught in their throats. She stood as a shadow among them, a specter woven into the fabric of that opulence. The silence was suffocating, until finally, the sound of Mr. Harrison's voice shattered it like glass. What has happened? He demanded, his voice strained and frantic, as he pushed through the crowd. His normally composed demeanor was cracking, the fear reflected in his eyes was unmistakable. He was a man losing control. Glancing around, the guests followed Harrison's gaze to an open door at the end of the hallway, faintly illuminated by flickering candlelight. The room was a study, adorned with expensive, leather-bound tomes and gilded frames on the walls. Yet tonight, beneath the elegance, something far more sinister was lurking. As people edged closer, they barely caught sight of a figure crumpled on the polished floor, a woman dressed in a gown of pristine white, now stained crimson. It was Clara, the neighbor's daughter, known for her sweetness and charm. The sight of her lifeless body sent waves of nausea through the crowd, murmurs transforming into horrified gasps, but the maid, she didn't flinch. A flash of something unreadable flickered across her face, and a cold chill hardly anyone noticed traversed through the room, tightening the air. Call an ambulance. Someone yelled, voice straining in panic, the cry echoing against the high ceilings. What's going on? Why was she alone? Mr. Harrison's voice trembled. He turned to the maid, desperation in his gaze. What did you see? Slowly, deliberately, as if measuring her words, she spoke. She was afraid. Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it cut like a knife. A collective shudder ran through the guests. The way she said it held weight, like a prophecy hanging above them. What could make someone so frightened at a party meant for celebration? Questions clawed at the back of their minds. Was there danger hidden in the shadows? Did it have something to do with Clara's death? The atmosphere shifted again, anxiety replaced by suspicion. Glances shot back and forth between the maid and Mr. Harrison, as hushed tones turned accusatory. What do you know? A guest dared to whisper. I was just serving. The maid's eyes hardened, her calm demeanor transforming into steely resolve. But I saw things, heard things too. She paused, tension thickening around her words. The crowd leaned closer, the very air brimming with anticipation. What secrets did she possess? What did her silence conceal? Fingers trembled, hearts raced. The clock ticked audibly, a reminder of time swiftly slipping away. You must tell us, Mr. Harrison insisted, desperation creeping into his tone. This can't be happening, not here. Not now. But the maid simply shook her head, casting her eyes downward. I can't, not yet. You wouldn't understand. Frustration mixed with fear as the realization hit them. They were trapped in their luxurious gilded cage with a hidden danger, while the key to understanding slipped through their fingers like sand. Outside the flickering walls of the mansion, the sirens wailed, drawing closer. But deep inside, secrets coiled like snakes, ready to strike. Then, as if rehearsed by fate, the lights flickered. Shadows danced ominously, and an envelope slipped out from behind the bookshelf, landing silently on the ground. It beckoned with a haunting invitation. What revelation lay within? What secrets did it dare to reveal in the impending storm? The crowd held its breath, knowing the next moment could shatter everything they believed. The air in the study turned electric, a current of fear surging through each onlooker as the envelope lay innocently on the polished wooden floor. No one dared to move, their eyes glued to the fragile object, pulsating with the possibility of answers. Someone should get it. A voice whispered, panic threading through the crowd. Their hearts drummed a frantic cadence, mirroring the sirens approaching from afar. Mr. Harrison, grasping at the remnants of his authority, took a step forward. Stay back. He commanded, the words more of a plea. His eyes locked onto the maid, silent but fierce, her expression steadfast. But what if it has something to do with Clara? Someone muttered, echoing the unspoken thought shared among them all. Let me, the maid finally offered, breaking her silence like glass. She moved forward, a shadow among them, slipping past the gathering crowd. Each of her steps hit the polished floor like a countdown, echoing loudly until they shocked the stillness. She knelt beside the envelope, her fingers trembling ever so slightly as she reached for it. If the envelope was a treasure chest, then each guest was a pirate, starving for what lay inside. The maid flipped it open, revealing a single piece of paper, weathered at the edges as if it had traveled through time. Her eyes skimmed its contents, widening in disbelief. Read it. What does it say? Someone urged, anticipation hanging heavy in the air. With a sharp intake of breath, she began to recite the chilling message. To those who dare to gather in this house of riches, know that wealth invites its demons. Clara was not the first, and she will not be the last. As she spoke, unease rippled through the crowd like a wave crashing onto the shore. What does that mean? A woman cried, panic rising. Who wrote this? I don't know, the maid whispered, her voice breaking slightly. But it feels like a warning. Then, as if orchestrated, the lights flickered again and thudded to complete darkness. Screams pierced the quiet, shadowy figures moving obscured through the corners of their vision. Panic erupted, bodies jostling as they scrambled for the exit, fear consuming every rational thought. Stay together. Mr. Harrison shouted, but his voice trembled, drowned out by the chaos. The room transformed into a bedlam of shouting and ringing ears. Suddenly, a scream burst forth from the crowd, sharp and terrified. "Over there!" Someone shrieked, pointing toward a figure lurking just outside the door's edge, illuminated briefly by the flickering glow of the candles. "Get back!" Mr. Harrison warned, but the crackling tension was shifting, fueled by something much darker in the air. It wasn't just the envelope anymore, it was the vessel of fear that had become a living, breathing entity among them. The maid, eyes wild with a mix of fear and determination, stepped forward. "We need to find out who's behind this," she insisted, voice steady against the rising tide of panic. "There's something absolutely wrong. They want us to turn on each other." "Like a game?" a man suggested, his voice shaking as he clung to the nearest person. "Exactly," she exclaimed, her voice rising above the chaos. "We're being played, every one of us." A sudden silence fell as they stood in that circle of dread, realization dawning that this was no longer just a tragedy, it was a trap disguised as a celebration. The room, once filled with laughter, now felt like it was set to implode. But who was the puppet master? And what sinister game were they playing? The envelope still lay on the ground, an unassuming clue, whispering new secrets waiting to unravel. As the guests shivered in their dread, each heartbeat echoed the same question: what horrors awaited them next, and who among them would emerge unscathed? The darkness hung heavy in the air, smothering the last traces of rational thought. Fear twisted through the room like a vine, choking everyone with its grip. The maid's heart raced, pounding against her ribs as she fought to maintain her resolve. She could sense the panic rising, the crowd swaying in uncertainty, desperate for an anchor. "Everyone, listen!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the fog of fear, louder than the pounding in her chest. She instinctively stepped toward the nearest candle, its flickering light casting trembling shadows that danced erratically on the walls. "We need to stay calm and work together. If this is a game, we can't let them win." A low murmur spread among the guests, but the tension persisted, held tight like a noose around their throats. A gentleman to her left, sweat glistening on his forehead, raised a shaking hand. "But how? Who do we trust?" As if in answer, the lights suddenly flickered back to life, flooding the room with a harsh brightness that forced everyone to squint. Their surroundings morphed from dark and foreboding to vibrant, almost too vibrant, but still, the fear lingered, thick and suffocating. "Look!" a woman gasped, pointing sharply at the far wall where shadows flickered, creating shapes that made the heart race. "Someone's there." They all turned, breaths caught in collective terror as they spotted a figure, cloaked in shadows, standing just beyond the threshold of the room. The atmosphere shifted, hardening as they watched the figure inch closer, an ominous silhouette wrapped in an aura of foreboding. "Who are you?" Mr. Harrison croaked, his voice wavering. "Is this part of your sick game?" No answer came, yet the figure continued to advance, movements deliberate, steady. A fleeting flicker of recognition crossed the maid's mind. The familiar stance, the outline weight. She called, her heart pounding. "I think I know them." A sudden crack echoed through the air as the figure stepped into the light, and gasps erupted. It was Clara, lifeless eyes staring out from a once vibrant face smeared with darkness. The room erupted into chaos again, screams mingled with frantic questions. "Is it a ghost?" someone cried, stepping back against the wall in sheer horror. "Clara's dead, how is she here?" "No!" the maid shouted, raising her voice to drown out the panic. "That's not Clara. It's a trick. It's meant to confuse us." With the crowd on the verge of hysteria, unsettling whispers filled the room, rife with speculation and accusations. Eyes darted around, searching for allies and enemies alike. Who among them was in cahoots with this sinister presence? "Stop!" the maid yelled, trying to regain control. "We can't fall apart. We need to find out what this means." We need to figure out what happened to Clara, but even as she spoke, doubt crept into her own mind. Clara had been friendly, bright, and the life of the party. Would she really use her death as a tool to terrify them? Or was it someone else, someone alive, who was testing their sanity, their trust in one another? In that moment, a phone began to ring, a shrill sound cutting through the pandemonium. The sound echoed in that bewildering silence, drawing every eye toward the source. It sat innocently atop a nearby table, an old rotary phone, its light blinking persistently. "Answer it," a voice suggested, quivering with fear. Whoever it was, they had chosen the worst possible moment for a game. But the maid knew one thing for sure: they were not just playing, they were flirting with madness. As the maid reached for the phone, her skin prickled with the sensation of being watched, an unseen presence lurking in the corners, waiting for her to break. "Who's calling? What do they want?" She hesitated. But before she could lift the receiver, the light above them shattered, crimson shards raining down. A ghastly whisper filled the air, sweeping through the throng of terrified faces. "You shouldn't have come." What awaited her on the other end? What twisted fate had they unwittingly stepped into? As the shadows reclaimed the light, laughter echoed, a haunting sound that wrapped around them tighter than fear. The game was only beginning. The phone rang again, its relentless tone cutting through the chaos. Anxiety twisted the maid's stomach. Time stretched, the air becoming thick and electric around her. With shaky hands, she grasped the receiver, her heartbeat pounding louder than the ringing. "Hello?" she said, her voice barely a whisper, soaked in dread. Silence loomed on the other end, heavy and expectant. The crowd watched her, eyes wide, breaths held. She felt their desperation as they leaned closer, searching for answers. Seconds felt like hours, suspended in a fragile bubble of fear. Then, a low, teasing voice came through, slithering directly into her ear. "Did you think this was all a game? You've stumbled into something much darker." The room chilled. Goosebumps peppered her arms. "Who are you?" She could barely force the words past the lump in her throat. A soft laugh, like broken glass, echoed back. "Names don't matter. What matters is the truth you seek and the darkness that surrounds you." From the corner of her eye, she saw people staring at her, expressions turning from fear to something else, curiosity edged with suspicion. Their whispers began to mingle again, accusations surfacing amidst the uncertainty, fraying the thin threads of trust. "But Clara, what does she have to do with this?" The maid managed, her voice quavering. The voice on the line chuckled, twisted with sinister delight. "She's just the beginning. The truth is buried deep, and you'll uncover it if you dare." Before she could respond, the connection crackled and died, leaving her clutching a dead receiver, confusion mingling with rising panic. She turned to the guest nearest her, a thin man with pupils wide and darting. "Did you hear that? Do you think they know what happened to Clara?" He shook his head, his breath coming in desperate bursts. "What do we even do now? This is insane. We should call the police, break this up. Do you really think it's just a prank? After what we saw?" The maid's tone was firm, but deep down, her own heart was racing with doubt. "We need to stay together. Whoever this is, they're playing with us." Another crash interrupted, and everyone flinched toward the sound. A mirror on the far wall had shattered, fragments spilling across the floor like shards of shattered sanity. "This isn't right." A woman screamed, clutching her friend. "We're not safe here. We need to find a way out." But the room felt smaller, closing in, the exits once visible now a maze of panic and uncertainty. The laughter came again, muffled through the chaos, sending chills down the maid's spine. "Everyone, listen!" she shouted again, attempting to reignite courage. "We've got to stay focused. Who knows Clara the best? Maybe someone can remember something she didn't want us to know." If anyone remembered, it was buried beneath layers of fear. Tension mounted. Eyes were filled with suspicion, a distrust that felt almost palpable. Then, like a cruel twist of fate, the lights flickered out once more. Darkness swallowed them whole. The soft whimpering of frightened voices floated through the void, thick and oppressive. Shuffling feet stirred dust, and breathing quickened in the blackness. Then came a voice faint yet unmistakable. It cut through the murky air, like a candle in a storm. "I know what happened to Clara. If you want to find her, you have to follow me." The maid's gut tightened. Who spoke? What blindness had led them here, and could she trust this new voice? As the oppressive darkness enveloped them, a flickering flame ignited somewhere deep inside her, a flame that urged her forward, despite the terror threatening to consume them all. "Wait!" she shouted, stepping into the shroud of inky blackness. "We can't lose anyone else. We need to follow them." But as she moved, a gliding shadow darted close, whispering in her ear with cutting clarity, "You want to like what you find." What chilling revelations awaited in the abyss? Would they uncover Clara's fate, or seal their own doom? Shrouded in darkness, the crowd hesitated, some frozen in fear, others unsure of what to do next. The maid's heart pounded as her senses heightened, every creak and murmur echoing ominously around her. She felt as if something predatory lurked just beyond her sight, waiting to pounce. "Who's there?" she called, her voice wavering. She stepped forward, reaching out with her trembling hands until she met something icy, a wall, solid and unyielding. Panic gripped her tighter. Where was the voice she had heard? Suddenly, a flickering light burst to life, illuminating only a small section of the room. Shadows danced wildly across the walls, creating grotesque shapes that twisted and churned in the gloom. The maid squinted, heart racing. A figure emerged from the blackness, stepping out of the shadows, the thin man she had last spoken to. His eyes glinted in the dim light, frantic and wild. "We need to get out of here." "No!" she hissed, her tone sharp. "We can't leave. If that voice knows anything at all about Clara, we can't turn our backs." He opened his mouth to argue, but the sudden crash of heavy footsteps silenced him. The noise jolted everyone to life. Eyes flickered toward the sound. A door at the far end of the room creaked open, revealing a deep, dark corridor that had been hidden moments before. The scent of damp earth wafted in, along with a cool breeze that felt eerie against their skin. Out of the hallway, a figure started to materialize, tall and ominous, backlit by the faint glow. "Is that?" someone whispered, their voice tinged with fear. "Don't move," the maid commanded, clutching the edge of the table for stability. She peered into the shadows, trying to catch a glimpse, but dread filled her as the figure stepped forward, revealing only a silhouette that blocked the dim light. Then, as if mocking her, a chuckle bubbled up from the darkness, chilling her to the bone. "Did you come to unearth the past? Or are you simply running from it? What do you want from us?" the maid demanded, anger surging in an attempt to mask her fear. "Where is Clara?" "Ah, Clara." The figure stretched out one long finger, beckoning them forward. "To find her, you must be willing to confront your own secrets." The crowd stirred, uncertainty rippling through them like a cold current. An old woman murmured, "We don't have time for games. This isn't a story, this is real." "Exactly," the voice crooned, weaving through the air with a sickly sweet tone. "Reality can be twisted just like trust. What have you done that you so desperately want to hide?" The air grew thick, and the maid's pulse quickened as eyes turned towards her, judging and accusing. Like a wave returning to shore, the suspicion swept over the crowd. "Stop it. You're wrong," she pleaded, feeling the weight of their gazes press down upon her. "This isn't about me. We only need to find Clara." But now, tension snapped the air around them, building to a tumultuous crescendo. The flickering light above dimmed again, leaving them vulnerable, trapped in an abyss of uncertainty. The hidden figure grinned wider, pushing forward into the light with an almost taunting slowness. "Follow me then, if you dare." But remember, an icy laugh cut through the darkness once more. What you seek may not be what you wish to find. The lights flickered once more, the voice trailing off into nothingness, with the tension palpable. The Maid'S heart beat like a war drum as apprehension coursed through her. Come on, she urged, glancing back at the gathering crowd, we have to find out. But fear held them in place longer than she liked. What if we find something worse? Someone whispered, drawing back. Then we face it together. She took another step toward the corridor, resolve hardening within her. Her thoughts raced. What could await them in the shadows? Every nerve in her body screamed to turn and flee, yet she felt an undeniable pull, a whisper of hope shivering beneath her fear. But what lingering terror awaited her in the dark? Would they find the answers they sought, or sink deeper into a darkness they could not escape? The corridor yawned before them, a gaping mouth swallowing light and hope. The maid shuddered, scanning the hesitant faces of the crowd, shadows painted across their features. They were united now, but doubt weighed heavily upon each of them. She could feel the heat of their fear rising like steam in the chilled air. Are you coming or not? She snapped, urgency swelling inside her. She wanted to scream, shake them from their stupor. Clara was out there somewhere, but this man's words echoed in her mind. What was she hiding? It didn't matter now, did it? Not when Clara might be in danger. With a sudden burst of determination, she pressed forward and stepped into the corridor. Instantly, the air turned frigid, sucking the warmth from her body. The walls echoed her footsteps, each clang like a drumbeat marking betraying heartache. Wait! The thin man's voice broke the suffocating silence. He took cautious steps, never easing the tension in the air. We should stick together. Together? Someone in the back scoffed, keeping a safe distance from the dark maw. You think it's that simple? We might as well be walking into a trap. The maid felt her chest tighten. We can't afford to freeze in place. Clara needs us. Suddenly, the flickering light above them buzzed erratically, sending errant shadows cascading against the walls. Then, just beyond a bend in the corridor, a door swung open with a sinister creak, revealing another dimly lit room. Without hesitation, she pressed forward, and the others followed, fear tugging at their heels. In the center of the room, a vintage chandelier hung unevenly, caked with dust, illuminating faded portraits lining the walls. Each face seemed to watch, their expressions frozen in time, somber and knowing. The maid's throat tightened. A chill gripped her soul, and she could feel goosebumps rise along her arms. What is this place? The thin man asked, eyes darting from portrait to portrait. It feels wrong. She swallowed hard. It was true. The air felt heavy, thick with secrets begging to be unearthed. Then, she caught the glint of something in the corner of her eye, a reflective surface. She edged closer, her heart racing, and soon realized it was a mirror. But the reflection staring back at her was not just her own. Clara stood behind her, a smile on her face, but her eyes, they were haunted, shimmering with a depth of sorrow. Clara? She spun around, only to find the room empty. What is going on? Another voice shrieked, echoing her panic. Maybe it's a trick, the thin man muttered, edging back toward the door. Horror gnawed at her. What if Clara was lost in this twisted game? The chandelier dimmed again, plunging everything into darkness. A whisper slithered through the room. The past has a way of re-emerging, doesn't it? The shadows twisted, and for a moment, she thought she saw Clara's face flicker in the darkness, mouth moving as if calling her name. No begging. Don't. The maid shouted, stepping back, breath hitching. You're not Clara. You can't be. The mocking laughter rose again, laughter that sent chills crawling along her spine. You're a part of this, just like all of us. So much left unsaid, secrets unraveling in the dark. Panic surged up her throat. What do you want from us? The shadows answered, coalescing near her, ready to engulf her in a suffocating embrace. With resolve, the maid pushed forward again, her pulse racing, heart pounding like thunder as she screamed out, "We're coming for you, Clara. I want to let you go." But the darkness closed in, and just as it seemed she would be consumed, the thin man yanked her back. "Wait. What if it leads to more than we bargained for?" As she wrestled with the thoughts of hope and dread, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fates within the room. What hidden truth lay buried within these walls? And what would they become if they uncovered what they sought? The air was thickening, pressing on them like the weight of a million secrets. The Maid'S heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears as the shadows around them flickered and danced. Panic surged through the small group, paralyzing them with uncertainty even as they clung to the hope of finding Clara. "It's all a game, isn't it?" The thin man suddenly whispered, the tremor in his voice sending a fresh wave of dread through the room. "They want to play with our minds." "Shut up!" a woman shouted, her voice raw. "Focus. Clara needs us, remember?" "Right. Just stay together," the maid insisted, forcing herself to move. She took a step forward, and the floor creaked ominously beneath her feet. The portraits lining the walls seemed to warp and twist. Their smiles grew wider, mocking, as if they relished the group's uncertainty. They could hear that whisper again, slithering through the shadows, "Secrets, all your secrets, they will come to light. What does it mean?" The maid blurted out, scanning the faces in the room, looking for a source of strength among the fear. "What secrets?" A flicker of light drew her gaze, shifting towards a side of the room previously shrouded in darkness. An old writing desk stood there, its wood warped and chipped. On it sat an ornate box, intricately carved and beckoning. "I have to see that," she breathed, feeling the pull of its mystery. "Be careful," the thin man cautioned, but she was already moving. Each step felt like she was crossing a tightrope over a chasm of dread. As she reached for the box, a chill shot down her spine. Her fingers brushed against the cool surface, and a surprise surge of warmth raced through her as if it contained the power of forgotten stories. "No, don't," a voice pleaded from behind her. It was the woman, eyes wide with fear. "Once you open it, whatever is inside," but the maid was already lifting the lid. The faint sound of gasps filled the air as the box revealed its contents. A collection of trinkets sparkled under the dim light, rings, a locket, and a faded photograph of Clara, laughing and carefree. "Clara," the maid whispered, pain entwining with nostalgia. But the joy in the image collapsed as she noticed the figures surrounding Clara in the photo, each face grinning eerily, eerily familiar. The thin man's voice trembled from behind her. "Those faces, they're the portraits." Panic clawed at her throat. "What is going on?" The shadows seemed to close tighter, the air prickling with tension. The room quaked, and the portrait's eyes began to shift, locking onto her with an intensity that felt suffocating. "Secrets you've hidden, things you don't want to remember," the voice coiled in her mind. "It's time for the truth." She staggered back, the box teetering on the edge of the desk. "No. I want to let you take me." But it was too late. The light flickered once more, and as it did, the maid felt an unsettling warmth enclose around her like a familiar embrace, but darker, like home lost to shadows. The thin man, overlapping anguish and horror, shouted, "We have to get out of here. This place is alive." As the box returned to stillness, a gripping silence hushed the air. Then, the ground trembled, and low laughter echoed from the walls. The whispers grew louder, urging them to confess, to face the darkest corners of themselves. They were being submerged in a tempest of revelations. What lay ahead? Would they find Clara, or become part of the house's haunting? Can we escape? The maid thought, the flickering light illuminating the uncertainty and fear etched in their eyes. They were tangled in webs of their secrets, each thread pulling them in different directions. Just as the voices reached a crescendo, a deafening crash rang through the room, the box tumbled to the ground, spilling its contents. A gust swept through, snatching the warmth from their bodies once more. And then, deep within that whirlwind, a familiar voice echoed, "Help me, Clara's voice." The Maid'S heart seized. Could their hope survive against the crawl of darkness? As they stood on the brink, about to confront everything they tried to forget, the shadows piled high, ready to reveal the final truth. What more would they uncover? What sacrifices would they have to make to rescue Clara from the hunt of the shadows? The ground trembled again, and panic surged in the air like an electric current. The shadows roared back, twisting like tendrils, beckoning the group deeper into their labyrinth of dread. The maid's breath quickened as she felt the room closing in. Clara's voice echoed again, slicing through the tumult, "Help me, Clara." She shouted, her voice breaking. Where was she? Those lovely memories seemed distant now, swallowed whole by this dreadful place. The thin man was shaking his head, panic warping his features. "We can't stay. We have to go now." His words were urgent, but the air felt thick, as if the house itself was holding them captive. "Wait!" The woman cried out, her eyes darting between the trinkets scattered on the floor. What if one of these? She bent to pick up the faded photograph, her fingers trembling against its surface. The faces surrounding Clara loomed in her mind, each one pregnant with dark possibilities. What if these are the key? What if they can help us find her? "No!" the maid exclaimed, her voice raw with desperation. "Those faces, they're linked to our secrets. We can't." But before she could finish, a sharp crack resonated through the room, a sound like breaking glass. One of the portraits swung clear off the wall, crashing to the floor with a shattering thud. The once lifeless faces seemed to breathe, their grotesque laughter growing louder. "Do you see? It's alive!" The thin man was shouting over the chaos, sweat soaking his brow. "We have to do something." The maid turned back to the woman, who was holding the photograph aloft, bathed in the faint light that flickered around them like a dying star. "Look! They're not just faces. They're us." A jolt of realization gripped the maid. Her own face, almost unrecognizable, mingled among the portraits in the photo next to Clara's. Memories she had locked away surged forth: shame, regret, betrayal. She staggered back, her chest tight. "No! It can't be. It is!" the woman shouted, thrusting the photo closer. "We're trapped. All of us. We've all played a part." Her voice quavered with both fear and some strange exhilaration. "Then how do we break the cycle?" The maid felt her heart racing faster. The shadows were closing in now, eager to consume every ounce of hope they clung to. Maybe we have to confront what we've hidden," the thin man suggested, a hint of defiance creeping into his words. "Take ownership, face the truth." The room quivered, the walls vibrating with a resonance that felt both menacing and fragile. The darkness was eager, waiting for an invitation to retreat. "Clara needs us to uncover our truths," the maid declared, feeling a flicker of resolve dawn within her. Perhaps it wasn't too late. If we don't face our secrets, if we don't confront whatever darkness we've buried, we might lose her forever. Around them, the shadows writhed impatiently, but they felt less daunting now, somehow waiting. "Okay." The woman's grip on the photograph tightened. "If we're doing this together, we need to start now." With a deep breath, the maid nodded, and the group fell into hushed silence, surrounded by the melancholy of the past. One by one, they began to peel back layers of their memories, secrets spilled like an inkblot across the floor. Each confession twisted the atmosphere around them, weaving a quilt of shared pain, guilt, and connection, and just as the cacophony of voices in the dark began to dissipate, a deep rumble shook the very foundation of the house. The laughter transformed into desperate cries, and a ghostly silhouette materialized, looming and hollow. "Help me!" Clara's voice echoed again, pleading and sorrowful, beckoning them closer and closer. What awaited them at the edge of those shadows? Were they strong enough to unearth the truth, or would they succumb like many before them? The maid stepped forward, heart racing. She felt a wave of courage building within. "We're coming for you, Clara," she shouted, the words ringing in the air. The dim room seemed to shift slightly as Clara's voice echoed again, more urgent, "Help me." The shadows hissed, pulling, tugging, as if every confession forged a path deeper into the darkness. The thin man gestured wildly. "What do we do? The more we talk, the more they close in." His eyes flashed with panic, bouncing from the maid to the trembling crowd. As fear began to sweep over her once more, an unexpected calm washed over the maid. "No. This is what we need. We have to peel back the layers. Clara's relying on us." A guest, a woman adorned in pearls, blurted out, "But what's the point? What if we just make it worse?" The maid met her gaze, her own pulse steadying. "We can't keep hiding. This place feeds on fear and secrets. We have to transform that fear into strength." "Okay," the thin man agreed, desperation coloring his voice, "but how?" A heavy silence fell as they all considered this. Then, a quiet voice in the back spoke up, one they all recognized. "I can start." It was a former friend of Clara's, trembling yet resolute. "I was jealous of her. She always had what I wanted. I wanted to see her fail. I thought I could drown her out." The shadows flickered as she let her secret spill. "It's my fault," her voice shrieked and trailed off, fear deep in her eyes. The darkness shifted, edging closer, but a spark ignited a connection. "You didn't do this, we did this together. We all have our regrets," the maid said, sensing a crack forming in the dark hold. The thin man nodded, stepping next. "I had my own demons. I didn't protect her like I should have. I didn't want to lose that part of me, the part of me that loved her." Each breath in the room felt charged, like electricity sparking through the air. Then another voice broke out. "I was angry with Clara for steering everyone's attention away from me. It was a man with features twisted in shame. I thought making her the enemy would make me stronger. But instead, that only made us weaker," a younger voice chimed in. "Clara just wanted to love us. To unite." As the truths began to spill like water from a cracked dam, the shadows trembled, wrestling against the confessions that reverberated through the stagnant air. Finally, the maid stepped forward once more, feeling the pull of Clara's presence. "I was afraid I wouldn't be enough," she admitted, her voice fragile yet unwavering. "But I will stop hiding. I will not lose you again, Clara." In response, a fierce wind swept through the room, cold enough to bite. It whirled around them, sucking the weight of hidden truths back as they bonded over their collective pain. As they offered their secrets, the darkness began to recede. Clara's voice mingled with their revelations, growing more hopeful and less distant. "Help me find me, please," the maid chanted. "We're doing this for you." "I'm so sorry, Clara," the woman who first confessed whispered. "I didn't protect you." And as they continued to share their hidden burdens, something remarkable happened. The shadows thinned, loosening their grip, allowing light to seep through cracks. "Keep going. Don't stop," the thin man shouted, his voice rising. The room shifted again, transforming into a spectrum of colors, the portraits now radiant. Suddenly, an ethereal glow filled the space where Clara's silhouette stood. She emerged, wrapped in warmth that dispelled the shadows completely. Her face crystallized beautifully, eyes shimmering with gratitude. "I can't believe you all remember me," she said, her voice like music. "I never meant to take from you. I only wanted to share joy." "Clara!" the maid cried, rushing toward the glowing figure. A weight exploded off her chest as she stretched out her hand. The same warmth that enveloped Clara began wrapping around the others, reconnecting everything they'd torn apart. Together, the maid urged, locking eyes with the others. They all stepped forward, entwined in a shared moment of understanding. In the blink of an eye, Clara stepped forward, her hand now outstretched as well. "Let us break down these walls. Together, they gripped hands and bridged the divide, breaking the shadows, splintering the fears, knitting their hearts back together. Clara's form sparkled and brightened with each secret released. And then there came a rush of energy, bright and unfathomable. As a radiant wave washed over them, their burdens turned to feathers. They stepped back, their collective murmurs of apologies dissolving into light as Clara's presence enveloped them, unifying them in vibrancy, love, and understanding. As the shadows of the mansion began to transform under the light, the echoes of their past faded, leaving only the warmth of their bond behind. In that moment, everything felt right. They finally confronted the weight of their secrets. Clara faded back into the shimmering light, whispering, "Thank you." The maids stood there, breathless, but filled with renewed hope. They had emerged not as individuals shrouded in guilt, but as warriors against the darkness that had sought to consume them. As they exited that dark corridor together, heartbeats in synchrony, a new dawn awaited. It was time to leave the haunted mansion behind. A chapter closed, another beginning, but the battle of darkness and light would always echo in fragile memories. Now, as the adventure ends, you can keep up with what comes next. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive stories coming your way. Smash the like button now to support our journey and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Your thoughts matter more than you know. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion too. You're part of this incredible journey, let us keep it going together.